Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. The summer months on a college campus are usually quiet, but oftentimes that means students and faculty are traveling and going places. And today we're recording this program in the summer months as students are getting ready to come back. But we're going to talk to some students who did indeed travel this summer. We're talking to representatives of Phi Beta Lambda. We have Emmalee Smith and Prisock. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
And I know you had a chance this summer to travel, and I guess when I say Phi Beta Lambda, people are thinking, well, what's that organization? So I guess describe, somebody who says, well, what is Phi Beta Lambda? How do you describe that for them, Emmalee?
Well, Phi Beta Lambda is a student-led business organization. It's a nationwide organization that has 4 divisions. Phi Beta Lambda is the collegiate division.
Okay, so people who are watching, they may have heard of the Future Business Leaders of America in high school. This is related to that.
Yes.
It's the next step. After they leave high school, they can come to college and they can continue that. And then even after college, they can join the professional division and just continue that networking and those relationships that they formed throughout their life.
And of course, you are a chapter at Missouri Southern. There are other colleges and universities nationwide who have chapters as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right. So structure-wise, are you broken into like state organizations and then districts? And then I know you went to a national conference. How's the organization structured?
Well, at the collegiate level, there are just your local chapters and then your state chapters and then nationals.
Okay.
There's not district chapters except for in the high school division.
Okay. So you have that
just
structure.
due to membership.
Right, the membership of college, obviously, and people are probably watching. I imagine they say both of you are indeed business majors.
Yes.
So tell me about your interest in business, what you're looking at here at Missouri Southern.
Well, my interest in business actually started when I joined FBLA in high school. I competed all 4 years and was a state officer, and that's how I decided to major in business.
Okay, so that led you to Southern and continuing in the organization here at Missouri Southern. Kyle, how about your business interests?
I actually found the organization first. My brother was a part of it, and I became involved in some of their fundraising activities. And as I progressed in my college career, then I got more involved with the organization and then switched my majors to business. And so it allowed me to meet some of the professors that I would have and to establish relationships with them and with some students that were in the business school. And so it was valuable to me on those fronts.
Great. Well, I know we're going to talk about your trip to the conference, but on a typical annual basis, you have organization like any other student organization at Missouri Southern. What are some of the activities, things that you might do as a student member of it?
As a member, one of the main things is our fundraising. We have an opportunity here at Missouri Southern to do the concession stands at the home football and basketball games to raise money for our organization. We do other fundraisers with the Boy Scouts organization.
So reaching out, community service and organization and so forth. Then with your ties, you have faculty advisors, do you bring in guest speakers, have activities that focus on some of the business interests of your members?
We do sometimes. We use the club sometimes to get the people involved in the classes themselves. And so it's both a recruitment opportunity for us, and it's also a great experience for the classes and Plaster to get to hear someone from a different background.
So for someone who's watching, maybe a new student coming to Missouri Southern as a freshman, interested in business, what do you say to that person? Why should they join the organization?
Well, Phi Beta Lambda is honestly a good organization whether or not you're a business major. It provides so many networking opportunities, opportunities to travel, opportunities to compete and find things you're interested in. But definitely for all business students, there's so many contests for any area of business. We have accounting, finance, management, entrepreneurship, which is what Kyle does. There's word processing. I mean, just any facet of business.
So when you look at the broad term business and even our School of Business at Missouri Southern, there are a lot of specialties within that school.
Yes.
Well, there's things that people could do even if they're not involved in a business major, like if they're not accounting, they have public speaking competitions and various things that are involved with business, but that may kind of cross schools into someone else's major. So a lot of people have the opportunity to be involved as they continue.
There's also digital design contests for maybe if you're an art major of some kind.
Graphic arts are growing, right?
Yes.
So really you're encouraging students, even though they're not a business major, check us out. Kind of the recruiting aspect there. So you mentioned competition. So let's talk about that aspect. What types of different areas, what would you do, for instance, in a competition? Would you compete locally, then go to a state level, and then eventually to the nationals?
For Phi Beta Lambda, there's a state competition and then there's a national competition depending on how well you do at the state.
Okay.
There are different categories of competitions. You can compete individually or in a team. Some tests have, or some events have tests and some have a performance component. It just depends on what you're more interested in and what you feel comfortable doing.
And some of them have to have presentations that have been prepared beforehand. Others are on the spot. They give you 20 minutes prep and then 10 minutes performance, and you don't know what it's going to be in that particular event until you get in the room and see it. And it's exciting.
It's a lot of a challenge, really, with the unprepared ones that you have to just kind of go and just hope for the best.
Really, they're seeing what your prior knowledge is going in to help you prepare for this and putting it together. Well, this past summer, then you had a National Leadership Conference in Chicago.
Yes.
So tell me about that. How many students went from the local chapter, or how that worked out this summer?
We had 7 students compete at our national conference. 4 students place in the top 10 in 5 events. So we did really well. Kyle actually won some money.
So not only winning an award, you win some cash.
Yeah. All of the events at the national level are actually sponsored. So depending on who sponsors your event, first through third or first through fifth will actually win some money.
Yeah.
And of course, ranking high like you did, how many students were competing? We say number of students at that conference.
Oh, there was a few thousand at the conference itself, but how many you're facing in the competition just depends on what event it is.
Okay.
Some just garner a higher level of participation than others, and some are easier because of the low amount of people that are competing.
Right, so it's the ratio, how many students competing in your opportunities. So there's these different categories, and you mentioned the rankings. So you have judges. I mean, how do they decide who's going to win awards at the conference?
The performance events usually have 3 judges in your first round, and then they take the top, I think, 15 groups from the first round, and then you go to a final round, and then you all have the same judge.
Okay.
So there's 2 rounds for that, and you're judged based on your content, your professional appearance, composure, and just all
they have
around.
some specific categories. They have a checklist.
They have
will be following.
rubrics that they have to follow.
And the rubric has 2 different formats, and the one is things you're supposed to achieve from the actual case study that you're trying to compete in, and then the other is just performance indicators of overall things that you should be good at as you compete.
So it's a couple of different things for students to look at as they're competing and tying this together. So when we say you went to a conference, it was really a working conference. The 7 members who went there were involved in this competition all weekend long, tying it together. Well, let's talk about each of your areas of interest. I know, Emmalee, you're a member, but you went to a conference. So tell me what you did in your activities at the conference.
Well, my competition was word processing. It was a 2-part test, an online multiple choice, and then a production test. I had to create forms and reports, and it was all timed. I placed 5th in my event, and then I was also one of the national voting delegates, which entails going to the sessions and campaigning to meet the people that want to be national officers.
Okay, so representing your chapter as a delegate then, basically. Tell me about the word processing. It's hands-on then. It's something you're
I get an hour for each part, and the production test is they give you 8 what they call jobs, and you have 1 hour to try to complete all of these, which is basically impossible. So you take this hour and you have to create these forms according to the FBLA PBL national guidelines.
So you have some specific
that you have
goals
to memorize. So you have to know the margins and the spacing and all that correct stuff for memos and reports, and just any kind of business document that you might have to create at some point.
So it's definitely practical application of these materials, which a lot of us think in the business world, well, somebody has to do that. Something to come up with that standard. And so you have some specific standards that you are following when you're putting this together. So forth. Is this a carryover? And you mentioned high school, that you had this type of interest in high school as well?
Yes. I competed in the same event in high school twice, and it was easier now, I think, just because I have more experience. And in working in the school business, lots of experience with word processing. So
working as a student worker and the office there as well.
Yeah.
So hands-on, helping you prepare for the hands-on competition. And Kyle, entrepreneurship. Big word. A lot of people say, well, what does that involve? How do you compete in that? Explain that process.
Well, I competed in entrepreneurship and then in hospitality management. And Entrepreneurship is involved in the fact that you don't know what the case is going to be, because it could deal with any number of problems that a startup business would be facing that maybe a larger business would have already found a way to handle. And so they give you a case study that's random, and you don't get to see it until you get there, and you have 20 minutes to look at it, understand it, find the problem that's on the page, and try to find a way for that new company to address that issue.
So then you isolate that problem, identify the problem, you then speak to a panel of judges explaining how do you present this information then?
Well, the judge usually acts as either the business owner or someone as a shareholder. So you're presenting it as your own marketing firm to a judge that acts as the owner of the business, and you're telling him how to solve this particular problem. And a lot of the judges come from the private sector, and so they can judge from experience how well you're answering the question.
So they're asking you questions, they're grilling you with, is this really what you want to do? Things like that.
And some of that's just trying to see if you will change your answer.
So they want to see how firm you are, positive of
How
what you're
confident
approaching,
you are,
confident.
definitely.
Now, while you're doing these competitions, are others watching? Are you in a closed room with the judge? I mean, how's that handled for the presentation?
They allow viewers, I guess, for certain final rounds, but most of them are closed.
So it's you one-on-one with that judge. And
Or
you're
a panel of
a
judges.
panel of judges working together. So tell me about your approach. What was your case? What did you have to deal with for this competition? You placed well and received some funds.
This particular case involved a hotel that was new and trying to break into more of an international market, and so it was how they were going to address that change in how they approach their customer base. And so you had to come up with how they would address their flight times, their menu options, what they were doing as a small chain trying to break into a large market. And so you would say things such as catering the wake-up times and the checkout times to the flight schedules of your international guests, making sure your guests' meals that may have religious or dietary restrictions were on the in-house catering menu, things like that that would help a small company break into a large market.
You can see how these could be practical applications for companies that have dealt with these type of situations. So you received a cash award. This is something that you come back with the cash as an additional bonus in addition to the prize.
Yeah, we have different cash awards, and like she said, depending on who sponsors it, depends on what the award is. Some were in the low hundreds, which mine was around $200 for that prize, but there are others such as app design, which are $1,500 for first place winners.
Now, you had some other members going with you. I think you said you had 7 students altogether attending. What are some of the other categories that were represented with Missouri Southern?
Oh, let's see. Okay, we had one of our students compete in client service, which is where you act as a client service representative, and the person that is your judge calls as a customer calling in a complaint. And so you have to deal with that over, like, as you're over the phone, and try to resolve the problem.
Okay.
What else?
We had sports management, a lot of sports management.
We had 3 students in that same event.
So that's a growing field. People are interested in that.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a little bit misleading because you have people that say, oh, I love sports. And so they enter into the competition thinking that it'll be sports questions when it's really the management side of it. And so it has nothing to do with the players or the statistics or the scores that they're thinking of in their heads.
It's marketing and management concepts.
So it's looking in terms of all these teams. They have to market the team. They have to be able to balance the books. They have to be able to control things.
Yeah, you could know everything about sports and be really bad at that event.
But if you know how to manage money and market
Right.
and promote your team, you can be very good.
There's people that don't know much about sports at all that have won because they could take the management that they've learned at Missouri Southern and apply it to the situation they were given with the team.
So management skills are going to go across the different fields that you're involved with. That's right. What about social media? And that's a growing area in every field. Do you have social media aspects of competition?
Yeah,
as
we
well?
actually had 2 students compete in social media campaign, which is where you develop a social media kind of different outreach for your chapter.
Okay, so it's specifically what your chapter can do. So,
And how your chapter recruits and what your chapter does in the community and all the different aspects of what FBLA and PBL is trying to accomplish.
And that's a specific competition, but it's something that now we can't really get away from it. Every competition you enter, they're asking, how are you using social media? Is this the best platform for that company? For some companies, they need Instagram, they need Pinterest, some don't. And so they question not only whether or not you're using it, but is this really the best usage of social media for what you're doing?
A lot of people assume in today's world, well, you've got to use all those different avenues, but maybe it doesn't apply to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, you don't, I mean, I think that every company should have a certain outlet of social media, but for a more visual company, obviously Instagram is the way to go. But for things, you know, that don't necessarily need that visual aspect, there are other, you know, more
Creating
effective
your awareness of what those options are for people. So how does this, people are watching, wondering, okay, this is organization, how does this tie into the courses you're taking at Missouri Southern? Are you able to take these things that you've learned in the classroom to the conference, or vice versa, bring them back to the classroom?
Well, the courses act as a prerequisite to the conference itself. If you haven't been paying attention in your courses and you haven't been applying yourself through your courses of study all the way along, you're going to be at a severe disadvantage once you get into the competition. But on the opposite side, there's things that maybe a judge asks you that maybe you haven't heard about before, and so you bring that back to the university and say, what are we doing about this? Do we teach this in our classes, and where can I really find out about this avenue that I heard about?
Well, there are certain events, the, you know, prepared ones that you do in advance before the actual conference itself, that our advisor, Stu Dunlap, actually will have students in his classroom. If it ties into what the class is about, we'll have them, you know, kind of an in-class project
To carry through.
that's actually a competition as well.
So a lot of overlap there in tying things together.
They can get a grade and also
Take it on to
use
competition. And you're also at that conference, you talked about interacting with professionals. Do you have that chance to network with professionals, find out about different fields that you might be interested in?
Absolutely. At the national conferences, they provide students with a lot of opportunities to attend leadership workshops, which is where business professionals will come in and talk to students about their field. We'll have different, you know, marketing firms or management firms come in and talk to students about, you know, career paths and how they got to where they are. Men's Warehouse, actually, at every conference that FBLA PBL does a workshop on dressing professionally every time, because surprisingly there are a lot of people who show up to a business conference not dressed in business attire.
The casual doesn't cut it.
No.
And this is something that I think whether you're a business student or any student, in Missouri Southern this past year, you know, had their career fair had a Dress for Success Day, you know, telling, you know, dressing, and so even those small details, you're finding it important.
And some of the ways they allow you to interact is your judges are available for Q&A, and since they pull so many of them from the private sector, you can say, well, what would you have done, or what was really the best solution? And once they've turned all the performance sheets in, they have no reason not to tell you what they thought the best one was, since everyone's already done. And so you can learn from them. And part of it is also that since we have these competitions in larger venues like Chicago and Washington, D.C., just being in that area, you have the opportunity. I met someone from the Association of Corporate Growth that wasn't related with the conference just because they happened to be in the same hotel. So there's lots of opportunities to find and meet people.
So that networking really falls into
Well, and all of these judges, like Kyle said, you know, they all work in these fields. They're not just people taken off the street like, hey, you're free.
They know marketing.
They know about the event they're judging, and they really are a good source of information. If you have a chance to talk to them afterwards, I definitely always encourage it.
How about interacting with other students? You know, you're one of many chapters that are represented there. Are you able to visit with the other universities and say, hey, what are you guys doing? How is it working there?
Yeah, at the workshops, lots of students interact with each other, and actually on the last night of the conference, they provide you with kind of a social event almost for the students that want to go and meet other, you know, people from around the area. They also, each state provides their state delegation with pins. Like trading pins, and people will go and trade pins with students from other schools or other states, so you get to meet people that way and come home with pins from, you know, Iowa or, you know, different.
So it's kind of a tradition for the organization.
Oh, yeah. All the states will sit in the same section with each other too, and there's a big push put on the organization to where when someone wins from Missouri, it's not just us cheering for Missouri Southern, it's us cheering for all of Missouri when they win,
cheers.
and all of Missouri cheers for you.
So a lot of support. So prior to going to this national, you've had that competition statewide.
Yes.
And then you get to meet the people statewide that then go on to the conference together with you.
And each state chapter also has a group of state officers as well. So you have, you know, you have your state leaders that you get to know, and get to know more about the organization. And then those state leaders actually have more opportunities to meet with the national officers. So you just kind of keep building and making those connections.
Well, Missouri Southern's had a chapter for quite a few years, so you've had a lot of success over the years. Do you, some of your alums or grads from the school here at Missouri Southern ever come back and visit with the chapter and say, this made a difference in my life?
They come to the chapter, or they come to the classes. A lot of them turn in time back to the classes that help them get ready for the competition, and we take some of our time the same way sometimes to go to the Joplin High School and help their chapter prepare for their competition. So there's a follow-up all the way through.
All the way through. So personally, your goal with the chapter, you're an incoming president right now.
Yes.
So tell me what that means for people.
Well, actually, our whole officer team for next year we were all freshmen last year. So we have this kind of united front of...
We've loved it the first year, we're carrying it through now.
So we're really excited to recruit new people. Last year we had 25 members, I think. We're looking to just increase membership and get more involvement in competition. We did really well this year in competition for both Phi Beta Lambda and Collegiate DECA, and we just really want our students to compete and do well and make a good impression on the school as a whole.
Now, you mentioned Collegiate DECA, which we haven't specifically brought up. Explain that. Somebody said, well, they just used a new term.
Yes, Collegiate DECA we actually run in counterpart with Phi Beta Lambda. They're both collegiate student-led business organizations, and it's a lot of the same students involved in both, so they're just combined here at Missouri Southern.
Unified effort along those lines. Now, Kyle, I know you're a little further along in your academic career, so tell me the impact that the organization's had for you, and how it's tying into your future goals.
It's had a large impact in that you get to meet so many people, and you form greater friendships with the people you know already at school. There's a lot of friendships that you had that are a lot stronger because you go on trips or you learn to compete with them, and it gives you a really neat inside look on teamwork and what you would do in the real world. There's people that you would look at and you would say, they will be fantastic. And then once you partner with them, you probably wouldn't pick them for something again. And then there's other people that you severely underestimated that once they were put under pressure, they turned out to be unbelievable at the event they were in. And it's helped me also in the fact that if you place in something at all, you can't compete in that the next year. And so it's always
You've got to go on to a new area.
to learn something new and acquire a new skill.
Yeah, especially about the friendships, spending a lot of time with people. This last conference we went to, there was 7 of us. I was the only girl. And I never thought that I would enjoy spending 5 days
with a carload of guys.
6 boys. But they're all, the PBL as a whole organization is a lot of really great people, and you get to know a lot of really great people that you otherwise probably wouldn't be friends with.
And from a female perspective, we've heard about more women getting into business.
Yes, please.
Are you finding that when you go to the conference, you're seeing a few more women as it goes along?
I don't know. There definitely is a larger male presence at Phi Beta Lambda. In high school, in FBLA, it was all girls. So this is totally new for me.
So you would encourage those women who are business majors to say, check out the organizations.
Yes, it's definitely worth it.
Great. And then do you anticipate on graduations kind of down the road in sight for you, these type of connections helping play a role when you do send out those resumes, make those contacts for jobs?
Oh yeah, that's part of what we do with our own professional division that we're developing through Missouri Southern is we have alumni saying, when you get 6 months away from graduation or you get a year away from graduation, send me an email, send me a resume, and we'll see where you are then and how we can help place you into the job you're looking for, because you have these connections that they were freshmen, maybe a little bit ahead of you, and then they were sophomores, and now that they've been gone a year or 2 years, they're in their job and they know people that can help you, and so it's great to know those people from that time.
We actually had a member that was with us the past 4 years. She was the national president for Collegiate DECA and a state president for Missouri Phi Beta Lambda. Just got a job at the Sam's Club home office, just through connections made and internships done while she was here at Missouri Southern.
So
we have two of those. There's another one of our members that also has a home office at Sam's Club just from those connections.
So those connections, we hear so much about networking. It's a true story of
Yes,
networking that
definitely.
makes a big difference and so forth. And from a student perspective, we hear a lot, students at Missouri Southern, the importance of getting involved on campus. That, don't just go to class and go home and study. What about your feeling how this has not only enhanced you as a business student, your area of interest in business, but campus-wide being involved?
I mean, definitely it's good for the individual because you do get to know a lot of people that can help you in your career, make a lot of really great friends. You get to compete and maybe win some money. But it looks good, it makes the school look good, and it provides a community aspect for the school as a whole, which I think is really important, especially when you're in college, because going to college, you don't know everybody like you did when you were in high school.
Right.
So it's important to get involved, to make those new connections, to have people, kind of on your side.
You can learn to use those on campus as well as off campus because you learn, like our clubs, we have to be involved with the Student Senate because they give appropriations of funds to us, and a lot of our nonprofits or our issues that we're involved in, some other club may be involved in, and so you learn how to reach out to them and use the university as your own little micro organism to look at how you're developing your own leadership.
So you're able to carry those leadership skills across to other organizations, the Student Senate. I know you've been involved with student government as well, so you feel that those types of ties helps the university and so forth. And the people giving back, you've touched briefly on the graduates, the people who are getting back to the organization, to the university. We hear a lot about community support. This sounds like it's a good example of business leaders, people who know the organization giving back to the university as well.
It's great. We have an advisory board for Placer, and a lot of those board members have kids who are in FBLA, and they'll talk to us sometimes about how they can be involved in PBL or how their business can be involved with helping us or providing people to mentor them. And so in the coming years, we're looking forward to have more mock competitions with those area businesses to kind of prepare the students and to really get them more involved here on campus.
Any specific goals going into the new academic year? You mentioned recruiting, growth in the organization?
Yes, definitely growth is a big one. And participation, getting people involved in our community service and involved in competition is definitely something we want to push.
And community service is something that we haven't dealt on today, but dealt with a lot. But you're serving the community through these organizations that you're working with.
We work with the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts. We've done some things for the March of Dimes. Just any type of thing that allows us to move those organizations forward and to help them. And it also comes back to competition because some of those organizations are the national charities for Phi Beta Lambda. And so when we can help locally, it makes us look good nationally.
Yeah, actually the March of Dimes is FBLA PBL's national fundraiser.
Their philanthropy that they take
Yes.
in.
And FBLA as a whole, the whole national organization, raises more money annually for the March of Dimes than any corporate fundraising partner.
So having those ties dedicated to helping nonprofits and people in the community.
Yes, FBLA PBL pushes community service. They're actually on their crest, their emblem, it's service, education, and progress. So it's one of their biggest things.
Community involvement, community service. Great. Well, Emmalee and Kyle, I'd like to thank you very much for being with me today on the program. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to thank the viewers for joining us this week as well. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.